Spoon! Stuff what I got in the studio! Oh man, I think I just had a horrible nightmare come to life. Anyway, this is the Marshall Mode 4. That's the guitar from the first episode. If you've been following, if you haven't, and if you have, welcome to Soundshape Studios in Greenock, Scotland. For episode 2, we're sticking with sentimental things from my past. Not an instrument, but an amplifier. Back in 2005, I was sort of toying with the whole notion of buying a guitar for life, an amplifier for life, that kind of thing. So I thought, okay, I had the guitar, I'll talk about that in another video. I was looking for a Mesa Boogie. I kind of thought that's the amplifier that can give you everything from the best clean tone in the guitar straight up to, you know, your granny's going to keel over dead distortion, destroy your granny. Just past my 21st birthday, I'd already spent a bit of money on a guitar. As it always does, it comes down to money. I had a little bit of money. I was 21, I was being tight, I had a job that didn't pay very well. So I looked online, Mesa Boogie wasn't going to be an option. Dual rectifier, gone, out the equation. I looked at this brand new thing on the scene, Mode 4. Never heard of it. I thought, hey, the funny thing was, and this is hilarious, YouTube had only been around for a few months. YouTube had only been around for a few months 20 years ago. There was no reviews other than a few websites, but it was £1,000. It was £500 for the head, £500 for the cab. The cab is oversized and is breaking this table right now. This should not be on this picnic table. That's the sacrifice I'm willing to make for this video. The possibility of all this coming crashing down and the Les Paul. I take myself onto eBay, Temu, all these places you get stuff for peanuts now, didn't exist. So off I go to eBay and I find a buy it now for £500 for the head and the cab. Obviously I'm thinking con. It's a con. I send a message and I say, hey, look, are you trying to con me because I want this amp? I want it right now. The guy said, no, listen, fast sale. I don't want this anymore. It's never left my house. I just want a quick sale. It's not for me. I thought there's no way you're accepting half price. Half price for something that is apparently mint condition. So not only was he very insistent that it was completely genuine, he asked me where I lived and I said, well, I live just outside Glasgow on the west side and he was just on the east side. And he said, I'll bring it round to your house today. What? He delivered it to me. Okay, I've got the cash. Bring it over. And he did. That very day, 1 hour later, he was at my house. He brought it down my drive into my parents' hallway. I plugged it in. I tried it all out. It was fine. A couple of minutes of small talk. He walked out. His girlfriend that was in the car shouted, hey, what about this little box of stuff? And he went, oh yeah, listen mate, I'll give you this as well. I'll get to this in a minute. He came back to my door with a shoebox, just a standard shoebox, gave it to me and said, just take these anyway, I don't need them. Okay, I put it to the side, I forgot all about it. A couple of hours later, I'm playing through the amp, I'm having the best day of my life. I think to myself, oh yeah, there's that box of stuff over there. I open that box and there's 3 Boss guitar pedals in the box. Mint condition, by the way. It was like a compressor, sustainer, a chorus pedal, I think, and an EQ pedal. I used all these pedals. I figured out it was about 200 quid's worth of pedals, 200 quid on top of a £500 bargain. So I basically got what should have been about a £1,200 investment that day for £500. Yes! And so the story continues. Don't worry, I'll be throwing in plenty of B-roll, close-ups, all that nice stuff you like. Oh, do you like that? Do you like that? Do you like that? This beautiful partnership with myself has a lot of memories. It's been from Orkney to London, 2005 to 2011. And then it took up permanent residence in this studio. Or will it be back on stage again soon? Whoever you were, hopefully you're still an R, that I bought this from. I would love it if you've seen this video. Please get in touch. You did so much for me that I cannot even describe. At the time I bought it, just gave me such a vision of hope for what I was doing that I could never have got without the incredible deal that I got from you. Thank you. Amazing. An important note for anyone that thinks, hey, you're not talking about the technicalities of stuff, you're not going to go into it. That's not the point of this. I haven't even researched if this amp is still in production. I guess it's probably not, because no one ever talks about it. This amp, for all I know, could be a collector's item that is worth $5,000. It's probably not. But the thing is, no one knows much about this amp. Whenever I show this to people in the studio, or they ask, they just say, hey, what's that amp? They think, first of all, I'll get a close-up of all this, but they say, hey, is that the Weezer logo? And they think it's like a Weezer amp. It also looks a little bit like WWF or WWE, whatever age you are. It confuses people. They say, what Marshall is that? No one seems to have heard of the Mode 4. I'm not looking up technicalities. This is all about my experiences, what I've experienced just organically through owning stuff, and I'm not researching, dates of origin and where it was manufactured and all these kind of weird things. When things were manufactured, where they come from, how old they are, nothing like that. It's just about what my experience is, and I have never seen anyone talk about this. It was obviously some sort of answer from Marshall to the Mesa Boogie thing in the early 2000s, where everyone was looking for that new metal amp that just looked gnarly and like I say, it's the front of a truck. They all look like the front of a truck. There's an amp, Diesel something. Wes Borland uses it from Limp Bizkit. They all had that solid steel front, like, hey, this is going to mow you down and eat you for breakfast. I only used half of this amp, which I'll get to in a second. It's 4 amps. It's 2 amps over here and it's 2 amps over here. There's a bunch of tape on here. You'll see that in a bunch of close-ups. I'll explain what all this is about. One of the reasons this amp is so sort of polarizing, first and foremost, the cab is huge. It's an oversized 4x12. What I love about the Mode 4 on the front here and on here is that the Marshall sign, it's not something that's going to snap off or just, break apart in any way. It's a solid piece of metal, half an inch thick, and the only thing that kind of permanently ties this to me is the fact that I've spray painted temper cam on the side of the cab and the top of the amp as well, but that's fine. This went all over the country a lot. It's what you do. You want all your stuff to have your name on it, and it's just like, yeah, this is our stuff. It's on the stage. Don't touch it. On the side of the cab, there's a AAA pass from King Tut's temper cam, 2nd of November 2010. What was that gig? Cannot remember. Not going to look it up. This is all about memories, not about research. On the back, 400 watts, 8 ohms. That's it. Single input. You plug it in every night. You cannot miss it. Simple. It just works. The usual battle scars from loading the cab in and out of vans, cars, and whatever else over the years. Never had a flight case. This thing is a flight case. Fun little story about this amp is one of the first things this ever went through, like a procedure. Good friends of mine back in 2005, the Mocha Knights recorded an album. Now, what our idea was to use the line out, the emulated line out from the back of this amp to record direct signals, because that was, whoa, futuristic technology at the time. Like, wow, I can't believe we can use the amp line out to get the sounds and the tones from the amp silently into the desk, which you can through the line out here on the back called the emulated line out. Now, the problem with that is when you're 21 years old, you don't understand what that means. So you plug it in and you realise, this sounds like a wasp in a jam jar. You turn it up and you go, it's 10 wasps in a jam jar. That was our phrase for it, by the way, wasp in a jam jar. Bad distortion equals wasp in a jam jar. It makes sense. 5 years later, that I realised cab emulation, that's what you need. If anyone's got any idea what that means, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm not going to go into that right now, but cab emulation, IR, impulse response, we missed that completely because we didn't realise. So the only thing that sounded good were clean tones, which would have still needed the impulse responses for a cab, technically, but hey-ho, get over it. One thing you learn when you're taking a thing like this on the road, it's the only gripe I've ever had with this amp, and it doesn't matter in the studio, except I think these are quite new. You cannot see these dials. On a stage, it's a tiny little hole. How are you supposed to see that in no light? So what I've done over the years, I stuck on these little dots, right? So basically, when I set these, you forget them. However, things never stay set on stage. Gigs, tours, stuff going out to vans, cars, whatever, doesn't stay. You can't see that on stage. Marshall, big fail. Maybe that's why this amp never took off. I stuck milk white tape on it. When you're on stage in dark venues and whatever, you want to see this stuff at a glance. If something gets knocked, like if that volume knob goes down to there, you can't see that. You cannot see. Just stop it. Make everything bright and glow in the dark. So yeah, I stuck on these little dots. They came off at some point. Now what's interesting is this side of the amp is 1 and 2. This side of the amp is 3 and 4. That's why it's called Mode 4. Dun dun dun! Because there's 4 amps. Believe it or not, there's 4 amplifiers. I've never used this side of it. That's why there's no tape here. There's no dots, nothing. This side of it, clean and crunch, is all you need. If you have even the hint of a pedal, tube screamer, anything, the crunch channel is all you need. These are just crazy. They're just fuzzy. They're just kind of like, they're not, I don't know, the clean and the crunch are fantastic. I mean, I don't even know if these, does that even turn? The Mode 4 or the Mode 2. Hey, write to me. Write in the comments. Tell me your experiences. Tell me anything interesting about this amp. This amp and sometimes the cab, only for live use really, was the foundation for all of Tempercam, first album, second album, everything from 2005 to 2011. It would have been used on the last ever Tempercam gig that happened. It would have been used from nearly every Tempercam gig from 2005 onwards. There's a lot of history in this amp for me. You know, the fact that it's like rare in terms of no one seems to have heard about it. I think I've met like 2 or 3 people since I've had this studio that have ever heard about it, and one of them owns one, you know. But it's such a resilient amp. And the one thing I forgot to mention about the cab is that there's only 2 speakers in there right now, 2x4x12, you know, whatever. Early on when I had the studio, just ran it far too loud during a recording session. During the recording, the guitar just cut out, and I thought, oh, don't be the amp. But the amp seemed fine. Thankfully, 2 of the speakers were ripped, 2 cones were dead. So I took them out, I rewired it as a 2x whatever. It's been used for rehearsals, occasionally for recording ever since. It's still loud, it's huge. That's the Marshall Mode 4. It's a massive part of my life and it's still here. It's gritty and destroyed and I love it, and it's all covered in tape and things. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Oh!
What I got in the studio.